going to show you how to make a terrarium. Now, terrariums are really trendy now, but they've actually been in fashion for hundreds of years. They started off as being called Wardian cases and were used to carry plants back from overseas when they were being discovered and brought back to Europe and England especially, and became really popular during Victorian times. But they're on trend again now and easy to make. So all you need is a glass container, some pebbles, obviously some potting mix, also some horticultural charcoal, it's sometimes called activated charcoal, and different toppings, whatever you like. So here are some horticultural bark, fine chips, and here's some sand, and you can also use some moss. I've also got some sphagnum moss here, which is already pre-moistened. It's handy to have a little water bath as well, because we'll need to be rinsing some of the soil off these plants. And naturally you'll need plants. Okay, so first off, just do a layer of pebbles at the bottom. You normally do about, well, a couple of centimetres worth of pebbles. And it's like a little reservoir at the bottom where any excess water will sit, and hopefully the plant's roots won't actually sit in the water, they'll be up above it. So the next layer that we're going to put in is some activated charcoal or horticultural charcoal. It can be tricky, but you can also put it on a piece of paper and fold it and funnel it in like that. Okay, so it can actually create quite a nice effect having the different layers visible on the outside. Okay, now we're going to use some sphagnum moss. Now the sphagnum moss will be like a filter fabric, if you like, and it will stop all the potting mix from falling down into the horticultural charcoal. And if you're wondering why the charcoal's there, the charcoal actually helps filter the water and keep it sweet, and it takes out the toxins from it. So between that and the sphagnum moss, you get sort of nice clean water coming through. Okay, now we're ready to put some potting mix in. The potting mix needs to be a good peaty moss type of potting mix, lots of peat moss in it, or sometimes you can use koi fibre as well, or koi peat, and that will help hold the moisture in and also hold the nutrients in. Now I'll just put a little layer down first, because we're actually going to build it up as we add the plants. Now it's easiest to work with just moist potting mix. Make sure it's not too wet, otherwise it'll be difficult. Now when you start to imagine the plants in this terrarium, imagine it like a mini landscape, because that's what it is. So you want to be able to see all the different plants. Now when you go to select them, to make an interesting terrarium, choose things with lots of different textures. So this one here, for example, is a little mini parlour palm. Now it's going to get taller, so it's probably a good one for us to put in the middle, so we'll keep that. But you can also get lots of different coloured foliage plants, like for example these ones here. This is a little Photonia, or with the little pink vein. You can also get Syngoniums. This one here has a little pink edge, but there's white edge ones as well. Or we've got some prayer plants. This one here has got a lovely pink edge. So you can choose different plants that will suit the terrarium with all sorts of different foliages. Ferns, of course, are another great one, because they don't mind it if it gets a little bit damp. We've got a peperomia here. This one's called watermelon, and you can see that it's got really leaves that look a lot like a watermelon rind. And choose some flowering plants as well. This one here is actually a pink flamingo plant. So it gets lovely pink flowers. It's not flowering at the moment, it's just got the heart-shaped leaves, but it will later on. Now, when you go to get these ready for planting, gently take off some of the potting mix. Remove it from the pot, turn it upside down and support it on either side. And there we go. You can end up with the roots easily able to pop in your terrarium now. As I said, it can be nice to have sort of different landscapes, so you can have sort of hills and valleys almost, if you like. So when I'm removing the soil, I'm doing it carefully so not to disturb the roots too much. Don't worry that you can still see the roots now. I'm going to come back over the top with some potting mix. Actually, it's a really good thing to do with kids too. It's an easy garden for them to be able to look after. Now when you've got roots like this that are sort of a bit matted at the bottom, just get some secateurs and cut them off cleanly. You don't really want those matted roots. It's better to have the roots, clean roots growing into the terrarium. If they're matted like that, they tend to stay tight and not actually completely grow into the new space. All right, I'm happy with that, how that's looking now. So I'm just going to get the more fresh potting mix. And pour it in. And then I'm going to use my favourite tool, which is actually a chopstick, to firm them around at the root balls. So now it's just a matter of top dressing again with some gravel. You can use different gravels if you want to. I like the same one. I think it gives it a little bit of cohesiveness. And this particular one's got a lovely pink tinge, which goes with some of the foliages that we've been using. So you can use gravel like this, but you can also use river pebbles, you could use the little pine bark, or you can use more sphagnum moss as well, which looks nice because when it grows, as I said before, it becomes actually another green living layer as well. So now just use the paintbrush to get rid of some of those extra fines. Water in just a little bit, not too much. You don't want to over water it because the water will just come up beyond the pebbles, and most people actually kill their terrariums from using too much water. And I've also got here some paper towel which you can just mist down to wipe off any excess. And now just use the atomizer to give everything a final rinse. And I've got some moss here, which I'm just going to add little bits and pieces of to fill up some of the gaps. And a lovely little piece of driftwood to enhance the landscape. And there you go, one terrarium ready to travel to your place.